So welcome everyone. I'm Amanda Longani. I'm the director of the Huebner Career Development Center here at WPI. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about job search for alumni and what that looks like. Um, if you've engaged with us either as an alum or as a student, there's going to be a lot of overlap. I think job search, no matter where you're at in your career, is going to look very similar. Same types of resources. Networking is very important. Resume is very important. So we're going to talk about all of those elements as we go through this presentation today. Just a quick agenda overview of things that we're going to talk about. So first, sort of the prep and the plan. I think any great job search sort of starts with the direction and identifying where am I going? What am I interested in looking for? What's important to me? What do I value? Having your applications materials ready as you're doing that process. And so really spending that time to prep and plan before you sort of dive into searching and applying. Then we'll dive into searching and applying and what that looks like, resources you should be using, strategies you should be thinking about. We'll talk a little bit about events and networking and how to take advantage of those. You'll hear me say this a lot throughout today's presentation, but now more than ever, it's so important that you're networking and connecting with folks. And that doesn't have to look like going to networking event, but really plotting out and thinking about who is in your network and reaching out and connecting with those folks. And then we'll talk about starting. So let's kick it off, prep and plan. Some things. So before you even start hitting that apply button, and I'm sure many of you have done this already, is thinking about where am I hoping to apply? What kinds of jobs am I looking for? What industry am I interested in? And what location is important for me? And I talk about this knowing that there are going to be alums who just recently graduated and are looking for their first job, all the way up through alums who maybe have been in the job market for 20 or 30 years and are looking for their next opportunity. And so thinking about, for this phase in my life, what kinds of jobs am I looking for? What kind of skills are associated with those jobs? What sort of keywords am I going to be using when I'm looking for those types of opportunities? Am I looking for an executive level role? And I'm not going to find those necessarily posted online, but may need to go through an executive search firm or find an opportunity through networking. So sort of factoring in where you are in your career, what you're looking for. What specific industries am I interested in? So I'll take computer science, for example. I think a lot of folks graduate with computer science and they start their careers a lot of times in big tech, but there's so many different industries that you can go into in that realm. So thinking about specifically what industry do I want to be in, or what industries am I targeting? And then where do I want to be? Am I somebody who maybe just graduated and I'm willing to go anywhere, or I'm mid-career and I'm willing to go anywhere? Or am I somebody who location is really important to me? And so I'm considering that heavily in my search. And then sort of weighing these things, right? So you can't, I would give it a 1 and a 2 and a 3. So you can't, when you go into a job search thinking about, I want my dream job in my dream industry, my dream location, that's really hard. Unless you've really specialized in that area and you've had a career in that area already, then yes, absolutely. But sort of what's most important to me? Is the job the most important to me? Is the industry that I work in the most important to me? Is the location the most important thing to me? And sort of weighing and factoring those things in. And then assessing yourself. Do I have the skills that I need to apply to these jobs? So if you're a career changer and you're looking to pivot into a different career, have I done enough to garner the skills that I need in order to go into this career path for myself? Do my values align? So as you're thinking about industry and location and job type, really thinking about what do you value, and making sure that you're incorporating that into your job search. So I value a hybrid work environment. Okay, great. So making sure that we're looking for those types of things. I value in-person opportunities to connect with my teammates, making sure that you're looking for those kinds of things. And then, again, what are your interests? So there's a lot of different tools that we have available, and we'll dive into these a little bit deeper later in the presentation. But as an alum, you have access to all of our tools and resources for life. And so sort of keeping that in mind as you're doing some of this. For example, we have Focus 2, which can do a personality skills skills, interests, and values inventory for you. And if you're someone who's like, yeah, I'm looking for opportunities, I don't really yet know what my values are, or I know what they are, but how do I express them in an interview or through an application process? Focus 2 can be really good at helping with some of those things. So thinking about what you need in this moment. So getting organized. You've spent some time brainstorming and processing. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? The next step for you is going to be starting to get organized in your search. So what are some job titles that I might be looking for? This particular slide is very graduation focused, but thinking about really what are those job titles? What are those skills that I'm going to be looking for when I'm looking on these different job search portals? And I think we're in a skills-based hiring economy right now, which means that employers are looking more so for skills on your resume, skills articulated through cover letters, skills articulated through networking, and are hiring based on those skills. So really making sure that you're spending the time to think about what skills do I have and selling those skills. Next is thinking about, again, industries. What industries do I want to go into? Do I have contacts in those industries? So we'll talk about networking a little bit later, and obviously a lot more in the third webinar series, but thinking about where do you already have contacts? I'm sure you have garnered relationships and contacts over the years, whether you're a new grad and these are folks that you had maybe in your classes, or you're a mid or late career professional and these are contacts that you've built over years at conferences and through networking. And so starting to think about where are those people and how can I maybe do some informational interviewing or reaching out to these folks to start building some conversations and some opportunities at different organizations. And then we typically recommend that you have a list of 50 to 60 companies that you're targeting. So keeping those things in mind: location, industry, job titles, sort of building that list of target companies that you're working on networking at, applying to jobs at, et cetera. And then if there's an opportunity, thinking about, are there professional associations that I am a part of now? Maybe I was a part of as a student, or I was a part of at some point in my career. Can I re-engage with those professional societies? Those are often really lovely opportunities to network and connect with opportunities and jobs and things like that. So are there professional societies that I can connect back in with? So sort of starting to get organized, maybe creating an Excel spreadsheet for yourself and tracking these things. Additionally, you're going to want to use a similar Excel spreadsheet to track where you're applying when we get to that point. So it's good just to start to get into the habit of organizing your job search and tracking. I could talk all day about resume writing and LinkedIn, so I'm going to do a little bit. If you want more LinkedIn specific advice, again, I would definitely check out the networking webinar in April, and we'll go more in depth into networking and how you can set yourself up for success networking as an alum, but we can talk a little bit about this today. So 2 things. If you haven't had a resume critique in a while, I would definitely recommend making an appointment with us and sort of going through your resume. I've met with a lot of alum recently who are mid-career, who haven't had a resume critique since they graduated from undergrad. And so it's a good time to check back in and just make sure that your resume is transferable. Something that I'm seeing a lot of right now is folks who are underselling themselves in terms of experience that they have and skills that they have. And don't think that they're eligible for these roles, but really they are. And so thinking about, what have you done in your work and how can you sell those? Are there transferable skills that maybe you've acquired that you're starting to career pivot and you want to use in a different way? Obviously, if you've been in your career for 3 to 5 years, at this point, you shouldn't have projects or college related experience on your resume. Really, it should be more focused on your professional career. Are there specific committees that you've been a part of at your workplace? So, a lot of times, WPI alums will get involved in recruiting or hiring, coming back to the university and hiring folks. So if you've been part of something like that, that's a great thing to put on your resume. It shows commitment to the company and commitment to the university. So really, I think starting to brainstorm, like, what is it on my resume? A good resume is going to have a skills section sort of towards the top, outlining like what are my skills specifically. So it's really easy for a recruiter to go in there and look at that box and identify for themselves, like, okay, these are the skills that match our job description. Great. When you're writing resumes, it's really, really important. And I know I say this and I hear a lot like, yes, it's a lot of work, but tailoring your resume for every job that you're applying for is so important. And tailoring might look like looking at a job description, looking at your resume, and making sure that you're using the same language. So if they call it customer service, but you're calling it something else in your resume, making sure that that language aligns. A lot of times when a company is using a scanning software, they're looking for those keywords to come up. They're doing a scan of your resume and ensuring that you have a skills match. And so making sure that your resume is using that same language or those same skills is vital to getting pulled for an interview when you're applying places. And then, making sure again that any extracurricular things that you've been a part of. Are you a mentor through Boys and Girls Club? Those sorts of things can also be really great to put on your resume. Have you won an award at your current company or organization? All those things can be really great. And then we'll flip a little bit and talk a little bit about a LinkedIn profile. So, I think in today's world, it often sends off red flags for an employer if they go to look for you and they don't find some sort of professional presence, whether that's a LinkedIn profile, whether that's a website that you've created, whether that's a virtual profile that you have or a portfolio. So having some sort of, I think, professional presence online is really important. And sort of identifying for employers, recruiters, folks that you're networking with, who are you as a professional? What do you want to market about yourself? What are you selling about yourself? And really thinking about both the resume and your LinkedIn as a marketing piece that you're using. So if we look over here, making sure that you have a recent professional headshot that you've taken. It doesn't have to be professionally taken, but something where you're dressed professionally. Even you can have a partner or a friend take a picture of you against a blank landscape and sort of put that up. Or maybe you have you're a civil engineer and you have a picture of you sort of on the job in a hard hat. Those are also really great profile pictures. So just thinking about that, making sure that you have some sort of attention getting headline. And this is really important. I think if you're currently employed and seeking, sort of being strategic about what that headline is, but really selling, what are your skills? How do you classify yourself as a professional? Including any experiences that you have and making sure those are represented on your LinkedIn, and making sure that they're going in a direction. So I think a lot of times, maybe you started in one direction, now you're going in a different direction, and then you went in a different direction. So you have all these varied experiences on your LinkedIn, but trying to find a way to make sure that they're all telling the same story. And we can help with that. Absolutely make an appointment. But sort of trying to find that central thread throughout your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And then just, being very clear, compelling about what you've done. And putting as much as you can into your LinkedIn. So, were you part of a professional society? Do you do things on the side? Were you part of a committee? Have you published? Do you have a patent? All these wonderful things that maybe you can't fit on your resume. It's a really great place to put on your LinkedIn. So now we've prepared ourselves. And again, we can help you through this process. So if you are writing your resume, maybe for the first time in a long time, or you're creating a LinkedIn and you're looking for direction, or you want somebody to take a look at it, please make an appointment with us. We're happy to look through those things. We have appointments for alumni, and you can schedule those right through your Handshake account. So feel free to do that. If you don't have access to your Handshake account, please email us, cdc@wpi.edu, and we'll send you a survey, which will allow you to get access to Handshake. So keep that in mind as well. I put this in here because I think, there are people from all different parts of their career life engaging today. And so I just want to make sure that folks understand sort of what the timeline looks like. And I think that this is true for new grads, but it's also true, I think, for folks out in the professional world to keep an eye on. So, if you're someone who's maybe looking to transition to grad school, or maybe go back to grad school as you're working, or full-time grad school deadlines typically are in November, so sort of keeping that in mind. A lot of the life science hiring happens in the spring, and this is true across the board. A lot of that grant funding comes in around that time, and so the hiring really it happens year round, but really focuses in the spring. Um, Typically, summer research deadlines are early fall and early spring. So I know some folks are going to grad school and are thinking about maybe doing some research in the summer, or want to go into research in general. Maybe you're career pivoting to go into research. A lot of that hiring happens over the summer. Typically, large companies are going to be able to project out and hire earlier and in chunks. But again, as sort of mid and late career opportunities come up, those can happen at any time. The federal government typically recruits in the fall, and that's again across the board. And then medium and small companies are going to hire more ad lib whenever it's convenient for them. So you'll see those sort of pop up. I think that this right now is a really great time for small to mid-sized company hiring. So if you're looking for opportunities and you're building that list of companies, I would encourage you to definitely consider just small to mid-sized companies to add to your list, because there's a lot of that kind of hiring happening right now. So job searching. As an alum, there are absolutely opportunities posted on Handshake. We have companies who are looking for folks and are posting those opportunities. We have a specific collection of opportunities for alumni, so check that out. Definitely use that as a resource. But as an alum, there are a lot of other places that you should be looking as well. I think a couple of things. I think that unfortunately, a lot of the job search sites that people are using regularly, you're often finding stale jobs on those places. So if you're using LinkedIn all the time, or you're using Indeed, a lot of times those jobs are a lot older than they let on. It can take a couple of days for those jobs to be posted. And so by the time you get to LinkedIn or Indeed, these jobs may already have hundreds of applicants for them. So when you're building that list, I would encourage you to look on company websites regularly, especially if it's a company that's sort of in your top 5 to 10, sort of checking that regularly as opportunities come up, and knowing that there's a lot of jobs that go completely unadvertised. So these are jobs that are open or available, and they're sort of constantly looking for somebody but aren't posting the job. They're just looking for the right person. And that's where networking can become very, very beneficial for you. So sort of going in and saying, like, here's my skills, here's what I'm looking for. I'm interested in an opportunity. I have personally seen a lot more companies recently having sort of open apply job applications. So you post a resume, maybe post a cover letter, and then when they find an opportunity that they think might be a good fit for you, they reach out. So I'm seeing a lot more of that, and that speaks, I think, to this unadvertised job, open job market. So sort of keeping those opportunities in mind as well. If you're applying to one of those, I think it's really important that you reach out to somebody at the company. Find somebody who wants a WPI, maybe it's a hiring manager, and inquire about opportunities that might be a good fit for you based on your skills and background. This is just a look. I think like we talked about, applying on a company website is really important. Most company websites advertise available jobs. So checking on those websites, creating like maybe a favorites bar for yourself where you track those. And you can just easily click on them and see if there's any new jobs that are posted. A lot of these organizations will have like, you can set up a search, and it will email you if new jobs are posted that sort of fit your qualifications. So that's a really nice way. Do it once and then just get those jobs as they're posted. A lot of companies are doing this now, so that's a really great tip to sort of set those up in advance. And explore multiple job functions. So as you're going onto these websites and you're looking for jobs, a lot of times they will bucket them into different kinds of departments or different kinds of industries or job functions. And some of the jobs that WPI alum are applying for could fall into multiple buckets, and they might be in places that you wouldn't necessarily expect. So making sure that you're looking under different boxes and in different places, because, for example, if you're looking for a manufacturing type job, you might look under engineering because they might have like a manufacturing engineer position, but it could be under manufacturing as well. And so just making sure that you're keeping an eye on multiple places. We talked a little bit about Handshake and using Handshake to work for you. Again, I think that there are definitely some job postings in Handshake. Don't put all your eggs in this bucket. Use it as an option, check it, have your profile up there. You can find contacts in Handshake, which is really helpful. So if you go into the employer tab in Handshake, there's typically a contact identified that you can reach out to. There's information about the company. You can often find alum associated with companies in Handshake as well. So I think it's just a great tool. It's where you're going to go and make appointments with us. But again, don't throw all your eggs in this bucket. One of the really nice things about Handshake that I think is really helpful for alumni to keep an eye on is our events tab in there. So any events that we host are open to all alumni, but there are always companies who are hosting events, whether they be virtual or in person. And those are really great ways to engage with a company and sort of start that relationship. McKinsey Consulting is always doing a lot of things in there. But lots of diverse companies doing virtual information sessions, or how to get the job, how to crack the coding interview, how to learn about our hiring process, learn about our company, learn about our values. So keep an eye on that events tab. There are also career fairs that come up. There are career fairs that we do that you're more than welcome to attend. So that events tab, I think, can be really, really fruitful for folks. So just sort of keep an eye on that. The other thing that I would recommend is if you go into the employers tab in Handshake, you can follow and favorite companies that you're interested in. So early on, we talked about creating that list of companies. Once you favorite those companies, you'll get a notification through Handshake if a new job is posted, if a new event is hosted. And so you can sort of set these systems up to work for you so that you're not constantly having to go in and manage it every single day. So I shared at the beginning, I would talk about some additional resources. So here they are. CareerShift is really great. It's got a pretty comprehensive contact search feature. So if you're looking for contacts, LinkedIn, I don't know that we talked about this, and we will definitely talk about this in April, but LinkedIn is really your go-to for finding folks. There's an WPI alumni search feature in LinkedIn that I love. I think it's wonderful. I think it's really easy to find folks. I think WPI alum are so excited to engage with people. And so I think using that tab has proved very beneficial for the folks that I have worked with. So check that out. But CareerShift also has some really great contacts in there. It also has a ton of jobs. So if you're not finding what you're looking for at Handshake or on company websites, CareerShift can be a really great tool for you to find those jobs or those opportunities. If you're a WPI grad alumni, whether that's a master's or a PhD program, Versatile PhD or Beyond Grad School, Beyond the Professoriate are really helpful tools for job search as a graduate alum. So definitely check that out. If you're a person who is looking, are you an international person who's looking for companies who maybe sponsor H-1Bs, or if you are a person who is maybe looking to relocate to another country or another city, Going Global is a really great resource for that. So thinking about how do I apply for jobs in India, or how do I apply for jobs in London? And you can look those things up in Going Global, and it will walk you through how to navigate that, as well as give you job portals to apply to those kinds of jobs. So definitely a great resource there. And then we've already talked a little bit about Focus too, but really great if you're sort of in the beginning stages. If you're somebody who is currently employed and thinking about jobs shifting or job changing, Focus 2 can be a really nice way to start that process and realigning with your values and what's important to you as you take this next step. Really quickly, I just want to talk through some sample keywords in Handshake or any job search platform that you use. I think a lot of people often get bogged down when they're looking for jobs. They're using a job title versus using those keywords. And we've talked a little bit about this already, but just to sort of double down that it's really important that you're using skills as keywords, that you're using technical terms, things that maybe you would say quite a bit in your role as you're looking for those opportunities, because those are going to be the things that are going to come up in job descriptions. Everybody has a different name for their mechanical engineer, but at the core, a lot of those folks are using the same kinds of skills. And so you're going to get better results with a skill search. Okay, so we looked for jobs. We've found lots of opportunities, which is so exciting. And now we're going to talk about applying and what that looks like. Um, I get a lot of questions from folks about cover letters and whether or not you should use cover letters. Is it important? I am of the mindset that if it asks for a cover letter, you should submit one, even if it's optional. A cover letter is kind of like extra credit in a way. I think if you're someone who has a gap on their resume or are career shifting or changing, or maybe you've been laid off and have been without work for a while, a cover letter is a really nice way to sort of explain some of the things that you can't necessarily explain in a resume. It's also a really nice way to sort of tie all your skills together and market yourself for a particular position. So I do really like a cover letter. I do think recruiters are still reading them. We hear it's one way or the other. So either a recruiter is live or die by those cover letters and they're reading every one and they're making decisions based on cover letters, or they don't read them at all, but you are not going to know as an applicant. So I always say, if you can, err on the side of submitting the cover letter, because it's only going to advantage you. And then making sure again that you're tailoring these to specific jobs. I think once you start to get the hang of tailoring resume, tailoring a cover letter, it comes a lot quicker. It takes a lot less time. Those first couple can be hard, but as you get into the process, it gets a lot easier. So practicing that can be helpful. We talked about career shifts. Again, really great place to find even more jobs if you're looking for that. You can organize in career shift based on files. Again, you can set up some of those campaigns for yourself so that you get opportunities emailed to you as they become available. This is my hot tip. Copilot or any sort of AI tool is absolutely your friend in this job search process. I know that there are people who don't like to use it, and that's totally fine. I get that. But if you are someone who is pro AI, it can be really, really beneficial. So I have an example of here. Give me a list of companies currently hiring chemical engineers. It gave me a lot of really great companies broken down by different industries. And then I asked it, who can I network with to get these kinds of opportunities? And it gave me some broad strokes. And then I specifically said, okay, that's great. I live in Boston. What's coming up that I should look at? And it highlighted some key events for me and how to take advantage of those. This is just an example. I think that there's a lot of really great ways to use this in your job search. I found it really helpful to help tailor resumes to job descriptions. So if you put in, obviously take your personal identifying information out of your resume, any information that maybe you wouldn't want AI knowing about your current job or your previous jobs, and then putting in a job description and saying, what's the overlap here? What should I amplify? How can I tailor my language to make it better fit the job description? I just think it's a really great tool, and folks have had a lot of success in using it in their job search and getting that interview. It's also really great when you get to the interview phase, because you can put a job description in and say, give me some sample interview questions that I might get, and sort of starting to practice that interview process, practicing those interview questions. You can even type in interview responses that you have to questions and ask for feedback, and it will give you feedback on how you answer the questions. I just think it's a really nice tool. You can even ask for contacts. So you can say, I'm looking for a WPI alumni at RTX in manufacturing. Who might be a good person to reach out to? It's not always going to give you an answer, but Sometimes it does give really great information. Or if you're starting to build your list of companies, what are companies in aerospace and Connecticut that I should be looking into? I just think it's a really great tool. So if you feel like you can use it, please use it. I think it does a lot of the work for you, which is kind of nice. What I will say about it is make sure that you're not, it's great for idea generation. It's great for to be a tool, but don't use it to write your cover letters. Don't use it to write your resumes. Don't use it to write your emails because recruiters can't tell. And we've had some recruiters who have weeded out folks who very clearly are using AI in their application material. So just be careful there. Another great tool is Buzzfile. If you haven't looked at that, you can look at different companies. I think probably if you're an AI friendly person, that's probably a better tool, or even Handshake. You can look up Handshake companies by industry or companies by type of company. So I think those are probably better tools. But if you're looking for something else, Buzzfile can be really great as well. Some events to think about. So I know that this is pretty far out, but as an alum, you have access to our career fairs for life. So if you ever find yourself in the middle of a career transition or are looking for a job in early September or early February, we always have career fairs and companies coming to campus, and you're always welcome to come by and chat with folks. We also have a lot of companies coming on campus doing things like talent tabling, where they're just sitting and talking about their company. RTX was here yesterday, and they're definitely hiring alumni type positions. So just sort of keeping that in mind, you're always welcome to check out the events tab on Handshake and come to those sort of things. There's also a lot of local career fairs happening, so keeping an eye out for those as well. Again, we're not going to go into this too much because we're going to do a whole presentation on this in a couple of weeks, but networking equals finding those unadvertised jobs like we talked about. One activity that I really love and I think can be really beneficial in the prep process is to start writing down for yourself who is in your network, where do they work, who might you want to reach out to, who can I do an informational interview with. I think sometimes taking that brain time to sort of write that down on a piece of paper can be really beneficial, and thinking about who in my network can I reach out to. Again, we talked about the LinkedIn alumni search feature. Please use it. I think that's really helpful as well. If you're looking at a company but you don't have a contact there, that can be really beneficial. And what you're really doing here in this very beginning stages is to do some informational interviewing. So whether you're career switching or you've been laid off and you're looking for an opportunity or you're just looking for a new job, you're trying to get a view from 1,000 feet of what that company's values are. What are some strategies to get a job at that organization? What do people who work there think about the company? And a great way to do that is through informational interviewing. So sort of doing that outreach and saying, hey, I see that you work at Bristol Myers Squibb. I'd love to chat with you about, how you got your job and, what does the day-to-day look like for you? Tell me about your team, those sorts of things. And so just asking for that, maybe 10, 15, 20-minute conversation. And also, if you're new to networking or networking is harder for you, this can be a really nice one-on-one way to sort of practice some of those skills, asking questions, having a conversation. Some big takeaways. Do your research in advance of the meeting. So know what the company does, know what this person does. You can always ask like, it's cool that you work on this kind of device. Do you know anybody who works on this other kinds of device? Because this is like what I'd like to do. Do you know anybody who does that? Or ask for some feedback on your resume. You might say like, hey, if the conversation went well at the end, hey, it was really great chatting with you. Absolutely okay if the answer is no, but I'd really like to work for Bristol Myers Squibb in the future. do you think you would take a look at my resume and just let me know if there are things that stand out that maybe I should market more or less? And then always, obviously, sending a thank you note after you have a conversation like this. In informational interviews, you want to make sure that you're not asking for a job or to ask to have your resume circulated, because that can be really off putting for people, especially if they don't know you really well. If this is someone that you've known for a really long time, sure. But if it's somebody that you just had a conversation with for the first time, that can be a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. Um, don't focus it on you. You know, you can sell yourself a little bit, but really the focus is on gathering information from the person that you're talking to. So asking good questions, learning about them, learning about the company, learning about how they got the job and how they would recommend you apply or connect to get your opportunity. And then just making sure that you're really staying within that time limit that you're committed to. Again, we're in a weird job climate currently. And so making sure that you're really casting a wide net, you're keeping a lot of options open. I think jobs that were available a couple years ago are no longer available or have shifted. I think companies that did a lot of hiring a couple years ago maybe aren't hiring right now. We're seeing a lot of people go into a lot of diverse field paths. And so just really keeping in mind, like, yeah, I'll have these target companies and there's these industries that I want to work in, but being flexible and casting a wide net when you're applying to opportunities because it's there's definitely a lot of competition in the market. I think there are a lot of factors at play there. There have been a lot of layoffs. But additionally, I think that AI is really ramping up the competition. There are tools out there that allow you to apply to lots and lots of opportunities at the same time. Like I said, I think we're hearing from recruiters that those applications are getting weeded out because it's very clear that AI has applied. But it is definitely mucking up the system and creating more applicants in the pool, which can obviously create more competition for jobs. So just sort of keeping that in mind. I think in a market like this, networking again is so, so important. Tailoring your resume, taking that extra time can be really, really beneficial as you're navigating the job market and not just mass applying to places. I think that mass apply makes the difference between thousands of applications and hundreds of applications. So sort of keeping that in mind. I know I said we'd have some time at the end for questions, and we do. So I'm going to open it up. If folks have questions, feel free to throw them into the chat, and I will answer them for you. I'm also going to turn off the recording.